the army affected my marriage a lot, because it was not what we wanted to do. It was a regulation keeping us from moving. Like, it was nothing we could do, nothing else I can do. We're gonna have to wait a year. And then once that happened, I think it was just instant trauma to our marriage. I'm not gonna lie. Like, are y'all not taking marriage seriously? Like, that what I couldn't do and nobody told me what I could do, or how to help me. Y'all know this comes from God. We got enrolled in that program once we got married, but we were already at 2 separate bases. He's here, I'm there. Distraught, like, we're newlyweds, just married. We might have to wait a whole year to move together. Just blaming the army, right? It takes 2 people to, you know, be married through thick and thin. Like, you know, I know the vows say through thick and thin, through sickness and health. Let's take this overboard now. I want you to. Hey YouTube, it's Sergeant Gaudet. I was about to say it's your girl Rakina. It's Sergeant Gaudet, and I am so excited to be back making military content. I really just want to make military content to kind of just take y'all along with me on my journey. Not that many females, I would say, that's really creating content and relatable stuff, so that's why I want to jump back into it, although I still like my vlogs and stuff like that. So y'all, my name is Sergeant Gaudet. I've been in the army for almost 5 years now. In March 2024 will be 5 years. I've been to 3 duty stations: Camp Humphrey, South Korea, Fort Stewart, Georgia, and Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty, Fayetteville, North Carolina. So that's where I'm at right now, is Fayetteville, North Carolina, at Fort Liberty. That's just a little background about myself. So a little disclaimer, y'all. I know my hair and makeup is a little extra. It's actually December 23rd and tomorrow's Christmas Eve, so I'm off work. I did not go to work like this. I know this is dramatic. I just kind of wanted to put on my uniform to give the vibe, you know, so y'all can see I'm in the army. And yeah, I already had my makeup and stuff done today, so I just threw on my uniform. So please don't go to work with, you know, a whole bunch of makeup. Don't do that, y'all. Don't do that. Keep it light at work, okay? So I don't want to do too much talking right in the beginning of the intro. I just want to say this video is about my army journey, and I can't talk about my army journey without including my story, which is, you know, finding my husband in the military. So disclaimer, y'all, this is not to bash the army or say the army has, this is the army's fault because my marriage is, you know, I'm getting separated, and this is not the army's fault. I'm not blaming the army. I'm just saying that the army has really had a huge impact on my marriage and my marriage and our relationship, and the army can play a huge impact on stuff like that. Let's just get straight into it. So I joined the army straight out of high school, well, maybe about an 8-month gap. Then my first duty station was Camp Humphreys, South Korea, which was the best duty station I have ever had. I loved it so much. And so it's funny, so when I got on the plane to go to Korea, my future husband was on the plane. Like, of course I was single, and my future husband was on the plane, but it was crazy how, you know, we were on the same plane together. So we were on the plane together and ended up sitting right next to each other when we were going through like customs or whatever you do. Like, as soon as you hit Korea, you have to fill out some paperwork in the airport or wherever we were. And we're sitting right next to each other. Mind you, I had like no interest in him really. I don't know if he peeped me out or what, but long story short, y'all, we seen each other at a club, and he tried to, you know, he got my number, and I was like, you know, I'm really not interested in him, but you know, I'm gonna just give him my number, just bye. So long story short, y'all, I ended up starting to like him down the road, and we ended up getting married. But the thing is, we were dating, and so when we got married, we were already at 2 separate duty stations, because we did not get married in Korea. we got married when he was already on orders to Fort Liberty now, and I was on orders to Fort Stewart, Georgia. So instead of us rushing to get married in Korea just because we were already on orders, like he already knew he was going to Fort Bragg, and I already knew that I was going to Fort Stewart. We were not planning to get married at all, because it's just like, we just kind of met, we just been dating, like we haven't even met each other's family. Like, let's just not do that. Like, let's not rush into a marriage just to be stationed together. With all that said and done, once we were headed to our separate duty stations, I'm not gonna lie, it was so hard for the both of us. I know it was hard for me. Like, we were together every day in Korea. We were just inseparable, together all the time. We got through Korea together. Like, we just loved each other so much, and we were so close. We were best friends, literally. So we did not want to be separated. So we ended up getting married, and we, you know, talked to our family, you know, asked them about it, what they thought. You know, I'm not gonna get into all of that, but basically down the line they ended up supporting us, and they were happy for us, and we got married so we can move together. Us being young, Korea was my first duty station. Fort Stewart was my second duty station. I was only in the Army for what, 2 years? 2 years. We were thinking, as soon as we get married, you know, maybe it's like a few weeks or a month, and I can move to Fort Bragg with him, or vice versa. When we got married, we did not know that there are, like, we know it's regulations in the Army and it's processes, but we did not know that when you're on a duty station, you're supposed to stay there for at least 12 months. So a year. I had no idea. You know, I'm thinking, okay, you know, I just know people get BAH, they're married, they live together, they move off post together. I had no idea that me and him are in separate bases, and just because we got married, we're not moving together no time soon. That was a complete, y'all, that was a complete shocker to me when I found all this out. Basically, the Army regulation says that you have to stay on base for 12 months minimum, unless you have like a compassionate reassignment, which is like you need to be close to a family member that's very well off sick, or I can't remember the reasons, but compassionate reassignment, it has to be something very serious for you to PCS, which is move, and a marriage is not one of them. So I was so confused at that time. I'm like, a marriage is not a reason to move, it's earlier than, you know, your assigned time. Like, I was so confused. So y'all, little disclaimer, in the Army it's a program called the Married Army Couples Program, which is MACP, and that basically, when you get married, once you enroll in the MACP, once you enroll, you get, like, I think you have to go to DEERS, you know, submit your marriage certificate, whatever the process is. I'm not exactly sure, because I did it a while ago. Once you get in that program, when your spouse is on assignment to move, or you're on assignment to move, and y'all are both in the Army, you will both be considered to move together. That way you all are not separated like me and him, you know, were. Once you're in that program, say if your spouse is on orders to go to Hawaii or wherever, you're gonna get looked at to go to Hawaii, so y'all can go together. Or if your times to get out the Army are different, like your ETS dates, you can re-enlist or whatever you have to do just so you can be with your spouse. So even though y'all are in the Army together, y'all can be stationed together. You know, make sure y'all are a family, like y'all are married. We got enrolled in that program once we got married, but we were already at 2 separate bases. He's here, I'm there. I don't even know how I found out that we can move together that quick like I thought. And mind you, my mom and dad were in the Air Force, so they kind of told me things like this. They said, you know, you might have to wait a little bit to move together, stuff like that. But I'm not thinking it's a year. I think my mom and dad maybe moved quite faster together when they were separated, because it was a thing like we can switch. you can trade, you know, your base with someone to, you know, move where you want. But I'm not tracking that. That's the thing in the army. So, you know, my family's like, you might have to wait a little while. I did not know it would be a year. Once we found that out, we were completely distraught. Like, we're newlyweds, just married. We might have to wait a whole year to move together. So our instant reaction was to just find everything we could do to literally move. Y'all, I started researching like crazy, because when I was stationed at Fort Stewart, y'all, my leadership was already not good. It was nothing like Korea. I was determined to research on my own and figure everything out, everything I needed out on my own, because I figured no one was going to be able to help me, or no one was going to be really helping me. I found compassionate reassignment, and I said, I don't know if being married is gonna work, but we're gonna try to submit that. And people were just basically saying, no, compassionate assignment, that's not gonna work, blah blah blah. I had people in my ear, retention NCOs, random NCOs saying, you're not going to be able to move until 2 years later. Like, y'all will be separated for 2 years. I don't know, y'all are not moving. Maybe you can try, but I don't think so. I've had people have that same situation and they didn't move till 2 years. I was just like, it became so depressing and so demotivating, because it was like, as much as I was trying, it was so many people in my ear saying that you will not be able to move. And it was just like, I don't know what we're gonna do. Like, this is my husband now. Like, we have to be together. Like, I'm trying to get, like, I'm trying to get closer to God, right? I'm just thinking, like, spiritually, like in the Bible, I'm like, are y'all not taking marriage seriously? Like, y'all know this comes from God. Marriage is a covenant of God. Why would you want a family to be broken and split apart, like living at 2 different places? I just couldn't understand it. Like, it made me depressed, y'all. I was just like, what? And then, y'all, you know, when you get married, you get BH, right? As dual military, you both get BH. I don't know if you all know that. I know a lot of people don't know that. I am finance, and y'all, once you're a dual military, you both get BH. We don't have no kids, so he will be entitled to without dependent rate, and I'm entitled to without dependent rate. So I don't know the exact rates right now, but 1,000 for him, 1,000 for me. Not just 1,000 for him and I just live off him. No, it's 1,000 for both. Since we were both in the military on 2 bases, we were not entitled BH. I've talked to so many people. I went to finance, I went to, I tried to get BH for us, but we were not entitled to BH because technically we both were around a base where we had barracks. So he has a barracks room, I have a barracks room. It's not like, oh, if you're married to a civilian spouse, you have to provide for them, for a house, for your kids. We have no kids, and we're both in the army, so they're like, y'all going to barracks. So I was trying to tell them, you know what, like, he's coming to see me every weekend. He's putting so many miles on his car. From Fort Bragg to Fort Stewart was 4.5 hours, and y'all, I'm not lying, he was coming to see me every weekend. We just was missing each other so much. He had just got his car, he was putting so many miles on it. Like, he was so tired driving back and forth. It was a lot. They're like, you can't get BH. And we're just like, what? Like, we're just spending a lot of money, just him trying to see me. Back to when I was saying, like, I was trying to do everything, y'all. I looked at compassionate reassignment. It was like nothing was working for me to move at all. I was talking to people, I'm like, my husband lives, like, the whole battalion basically knew that I was in a barracks, but I had a husband at a different base. Just nothing was working. Wait, y'all, I did the extreme, y'all. I did the extreme to where I literally got my lieutenant at the time to send an email saying that I felt sexually harassed just to move, y'all. And this wasn't a lie. So this honestly was not a lie, right? One time I was on a base and it was this truck, and me and my husband at the time was riding on the base, and it was a truck like that looked in the car, in my car, and was like making like sticking his tongue out or doing something sexual. Like I literally seen it, and I told my husband like he just was doing something sexual. My husband didn't see it because he was driving, but that just made me scared and feel so uncomfortable that someone on a base is doing some sexual gesture to me in the car. Once that happened, I turned it into the extreme though. Even though, you know, I was worried about it, I had to turn it into the extreme just so I can be like, okay, I feel sexually harassed. Please send me with my husband. I don't feel safe. You know, my LT typed up a whole email saying she does not feel safe here. She wants to be around her husband. Her husband is there to protect her. I'm just bringing this up, y'all, because I just remembered us doing so much. And I remember me especially doing so much. You know, we made up financial reasons. We're like, he's not making enough money. We're not doing good with our bills. All types of stuff. We're living apart, but we have car insurance together. Everything, y'all. At that point when I was doing everything and I just found out, you know, nothing was not working, I kind of was like, okay, there's nothing else I can do. We're gonna have to wait a year. And then once that happened, I think it was just instant trauma to our marriage. I'm not gonna lie. Like once that happened and we were together every day in Korea, to being married and to accepting the fact that we're not going to be able to live together until a year, was just, it had affected us so much, him and myself. And I was like, it is what it is. Okay, so around like closer to when the year was coming, I researched so much that I found out that you can move with your spouse earlier than 2 years if you do a permissive reassignment or a permissive joint domicile. I'll link it down below so you all can look it up if you're going through the same thing. I found this by myself with no help from my command, nothing. It said basically that you can move with their spouse as long as, it says you can move with your spouse, but it will be a no-cost move to the government, which means when you usually move, the army will pay for your household goods, etc. They would pay for all that. Yes, I would have to move to Fort Bragg, you know, with the army not moving anything, us paying for the car, for the gas, everything. But for us, it was not a big deal because it was like, I didn't have no furniture. It was just a 4.5 hour drive. Some people that are separated might be like, one might be Texas, one might be in North Carolina, but for us, we're a 4.5 hour drive away. So it's like, okay, we'll move at our own cost, you know. We'll get BH when we get there, so it's not that big of a deal. You know, I just pack the stuff I have in my barracks room in the U-Haul, and we'll just, you know, pay our own costs. Once I found that out, I think the rule was like you can start the paperwork at 6 months, get it approved, but you will not be able to move until 1 year. So that's what I was planning for. I was like, okay, we're gonna do the paperwork at 6 months. I think it ended up being like 8 months or so when the paperwork was approved, and then I was able to move early. So it was the fact that everybody was saying, no, you can't move, y'all won't be able to move, y'all will never be able to move until 2 years. And the fact that I had researched and did the work and found out a way was just, it just showed how much I cared and loved him so much to move. And we did all that we could do. You know, I did all that. So basically, just to say that, well, we ended up being separated even longer than the year actually, because I ended up reclassing. So I was like, you know what, I'll just go to school to reclass. Is to change a job, change my job to finance, and then once that happens, the army will pay for my stuff and I will move with him and we won't have to pay out of our own pocket, you know. So it ended up being 2 years by the time me and him moved together, which was a long time. So basically what I'm trying to say is the army affected my marriage because me and my spouse were separated for 2 years. Within those 2 years, it was so much stress. Me and him were not communicating properly because he was working, I was working. His job is more demanding. He would be tired when he got off work. I was trying to talk to him, but he's, sleeping. He was driving down there all the time. He was stressed out, so tired. For like, what, almost 2 years he was driving. So much miles on his car, financially, just people being around saying like, oh, why are you in the barracks? They would ask me all the time, why are you married in the barracks? Why are you married in the barracks? Of course, it's people like around that are like trying you. It's just like a lot of stuff that I feel the Army could do better on as far as keeping families together, because the divorce rate is just so high in the Army anyway, or in the military. It's like, it's expensive to move, people from base to base, and that's why the Army keeps it like at a year minimum or 2 years minimum, because it's expensive. But I feel like that permissive joint domicile is a good thing, that you can move at a year. But I feel like if you can move it up to 6 months, that you can move, or earlier, because it's just creating broken homes. And basically what I'm trying to say is just throughout all that, the Army affected my marriage a lot, because it was not what we wanted to do. It was a regulation keeping us from moving. Like, it was nothing we could do. Y'all, I know it's so crazy. Like, before I almost moved, or before I moved, it was the sergeant major at the time. I think it was Sergeant Major, not Grinston. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to put his picture in or something. It was a sergeant major at the time saying on Twitter, what's something that I can do to keep you in the Army? And I so happened to message him, and I was telling him my story about being separated from my husband, and he was like, responded to it. Actually, they responded to it and was like, send us your information, we'll look into it, blah blah blah. And I was like, it really just takes connections just to get something like that done. Like, the fact that if I would have found, if he would have posted that months ago, or I would have known to reach out to the sergeant major on Twitter to possibly get this done faster, is crazy. Or it's like, what if I would have had a sergeant major or someone who could help me out? But at that time, I'm telling you, at Fort Stewart, I had no good leadership that would reach out to anyone to help us move together. Like, it was nobody to like keep a young married couple together. Like, so fast forward, when me and my spouse moved together, and I finally was able to move to Fort Bragg with my spouse. We got our first apartment together. We were so excited. This is all that we've been waiting for. It was just hard as far as adjusting to each other, Yeah, my camera died, so now I'm back. But what I was saying last was, it was hard for us to adjust, because like a little bit before the 2 years, he was so tired of driving and to see me. And it's like, he started hanging out with his friends, and then it was just hard to adjust. To, long story short, not to put everything out there, just the mental health of this all, basically. Because same way people were asking me about being in the barracks and married, they were asking him, and it was just, it was not a common thing. Like, most people in our units never heard of a married couple living apart, so it was very mental with us. Just me moving down here, I guess, like, the reason some of the part of us, just not really working out, is because the amount of time separated just can kind of pull you apart. And again, this is not an excuse blaming the Army, right? It takes two people to, be married through thick and thin. Like, I know the vows say through thick and thin, through sickness and health. But it does have an impact. I can only be truthful to what I know, and this whole process was very hurtful. Like, I can sit down and talk about it now, but like, me reflecting on this recently with all the stuff I've been going through, it has affected it. And sometimes I'm just thinking, like, if we were never separated, would we still be together, or would we have been better off? through this process, NCOs were lying to us about what we were entitled to, because down the line my unit's barracks was getting so full, so I was gonna end up getting offered a CNA packet to move out of the barracks, just because I was married. Because I think it was like for the sergeants, but since I was married I was considered too. They lied about, you know, us getting a partial B. Like NCOs, my unit said I would get a partial BAH because my husband's in the barracks. Like all types of stuff, y'all. I had some really toxic leaders. Like I don't even know why I would have got a partial BAH. Yeah, we had to, like, I ended up having to go to behavioral health at Fort Stewart. He went to counseling. We were both trying to go to counseling to fix it, like to just get our mental back right, to be fine once we moved together. It was just really a lot, honestly. I can go on and on about it, about how much stuff we went through. It was just hard. And so really what I want you all to take away from my story is never take no for an answer. Because like I said, with so many people telling me that what I couldn't do, and nobody told me what I could do or how to help me. And I proved them wrong because I was able to move at an earlier date if I wanted to. Permissive joint domicile, just if you do that route, just make sure you just talk to your S1 about it, because my S1 didn't even have a template for that. That's how I knew no one was trying as hard as me that's been in the same predicament and been separated from their spouse. Because my S1 did not know what it was. They did not have a template. It was on a 4187 that I had to do. And I meant to add in the only reason why I didn't I waited for 2 years to move instead of that 1 year mark was because I was waiting on a class seat to go to finance school, and if I ended up going without being financed with my old job, I was gonna end up in a infantry unit type of unit or air defense, and they were expected to deploy, and it was like we were already separated for 2 years. I didn't want to go deploy or be away for another year or however long, knowing how long we were separated for, you know what I'm saying? So that's why we ended up pushing it for till 2 years for me to move, and I didn't have to deploy, and I was trying to gain that time back that we had separate. But yeah, never take no for an answer. It's always a way, an exception of policy, someone to reach out to. Research yourself. If no one doesn't know, that doesn't mean that's the only option. Research yourself. I researched myself so much just to figure out what I could do. I just really hope the Army takes heed of this, as far as broken homes and divorces within the Army and the military. I don't know, my family's, or I've heard people say if the Army wanted you to have a family, they would have issued it. And I can see why they say that, because it seems like family is not as important as they say, or marriages. Well, I know they try to keep people together with the MACP, but it's like, okay, if someone wants to get married, like, you have to take that into consideration. And I know people that are watching might have negative things to say and say, oh, well, y'all should just got married in Korea, or, you know, did that before y'all got separated and stuff like that. But we did not know. We did not know. We were trying to do the right thing and not rush. Ended up rushing and this happened. So yeah, I don't know if this has any value to anybody, or if anyone's separated from their spouse or going through something like this, or just anything. Just, I hope this helps someone out there. Me telling my story and how I feel like the Army's affected my marriage. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's so funny because when I thought about this last week, I was bawling crying because it's just like, wow, things could have been so much different. But I'm able to talk up here today without crying. I love y'all so much. Thank you for watching. I hope I didn't leave anything out. If I did, comment down below or message me on Instagram. I will be glad to help out anyone. I don't know if I'm leaving anything out at all. I don't know. Last thing I'm gonna say is just, again, this is not bashing the army, because we're our own, you know, relationship. We had dictation, we had, you know, we could have made things right and did right because we wanted to throughout the hard times and everything. I know it's not an army. We're the two in a marriage, but I just wish things would have been different as far as the army listening to us or having something for these type of situations, y'all. And I forgot to add, this whole experience, is my hair up? Okay, I meant to add, y'all, this whole thing I did not tell my friends. I don't even think people really know that me and my spouse was separated. Like, I did not post about it. I was just so focused on moving. I did not tell anyone. I was embarrassed to post it. I really don't think people even knew, because I just did not make YouTube videos about it. I did not post that we were separated this whole time. I was just so in distraught and hurt and sad that I was not with my husband, and that it looked so weird to everyone that we're not even together, like living together. But married was just so embarrassing. I just had to add that in because I don't know, I had completely took a whole break from YouTube. Like, from making my Korea military videos to being stationed in Fort Stewart, I never really posted videos at all because it was just too embarrassing. Like, posting in the barracks and just I'm so serious. I just had to add that in because if you know, you know.